Have you ever felt that your depth is repelling rather than attracting? Are you tired of advice that suggests you become simpler, smaller, more convenient? You look at women who don't play by the rules, yet the world seems to bow before them. What is their secret? The secret of these women is not in forbidden tricks or cheap techniques. It is a state of being, a profound alchemy of the soul. And to understand it, we must discard modern magazines and look into the authentic blueprints of the human psyche left to us by Jung. He wasn't a seduction coach. He was a cartographer of the soul, studying archetypes, the eternal forces that shape our reality. Over the next hour, we won't just list 7 secrets. We will do something greater. First, you will understand why all your attempts to be attractive have failed and why this is a good sign. Second, we will decipher the 7 pillars of inner strength that transform a woman from an object of desire into the center of her own universe. And third, you will see the path to awaken this power within yourself without betraying your true nature. If you are ready to stop seeking approval in the eyes of others and start radiating your own profound presence, then our immersion begins right now. Let's slow down for a moment. I want to talk about a feeling, subtle yet constant, about the feeling of inner exile. It's the sensation of being an ocean, with your currents, depths, and mysteries, in a world that only values quiet, predictable ponds. Your waves frighten those accustomed to stagnant water. Your depth seems dangerous to them, not alluring. You carry a whole library within you, interwoven volumes of experience, intuition, and complex thoughts, but you are only asked to read the catchy headline. And when you try to share the contents, you are met with bewilderment as if you are speaking a forgotten language. You are a finely tuned musical instrument, capable of extracting melodies that make the soul pause, but you are taken by rough hands and played like a drum, loud, simple without nuances. Recall that awkward silence on a date, that moment when you want to talk about meanings, about what truly moves a person, while your companion enthusiastically recounts the plot of a TV series. You nod politely, but inside a silence screams, a feeling of total incongruity. This is the root of the pain. Your complexity, your intuition, your multidimensionality are perceived as problematic. You are convinced that you need to be simpler, and you begin to believe that something is wrong with you, that you are a problem no one wants to solve. Let me tell you something important, and I ask you to hear it not with your mind, but with your entire being. This feeling of alienation, this pain of not fitting in, is not a sign of your inferiority. On the contrary, it is a symptom of an awakening soul that can no longer feed on substitutes. Substitutes for superficial communication, empty compliments, and other people's expectations. Your soul is starving for authenticity. Your yearning for depth is not a whim or a flaw. It is the call of your true self, your soul, which demands real nourishment for its growth. It is not your soul that is sick. It is the soul healing itself from a world that tried to make it small, simple, and convenient. Every bout of this pain is not an agony, but a birth pang, heralding the arrival of a more whole version of you. The world did not break you. It simply became too small for you. Remember this, you are not broken. You are outgrowing your old shell, and this process is sacred. Now that we have created this safe space, let me ask you one question that could change everything. What if I told you that your entire pursuit of attractiveness is the surest way to lose it? That as long as you look outward, seeking approval in the eyes of others, you are in a state of begging? Your energy leaks out to the object from which you expect validation, leaving you depleted. And what if true, almost hypnotic appeal is born at the very moment a woman completely abandons the idea of being attractive to someone else and decides to become absolutely irresistible to herself? In that moment, a tectonic shift occurs in the psychology of your being. This is not wordplay or a pretty aphorism. It is a fundamental law of the soul's psychology. Energy stops flowing outward and begins to circulate within, creating a powerful gravitational field. You cease to be a reflection of someone else's light and become its source. And it is this inner light, this wholeness, that others flock to, not because you call them, but because they cannot do otherwise. And to understand this great paradox, we must first, like patient archaeologists, clear the ruins of false beliefs that have buried our true strength. We must methodically, stone by stone, dismantle the very tricks and techniques that popular culture sells us as feminine power, but which are, in fact, the most sophisticated chains. They rivet our attention to the external, making us forget the internal. They promise control over others, but grant only anxiety within oneself. They teach us to be someone instead of allowing us to be. Before building the temple of your wholeness, you must tear down the prison of other people's expectations. Let's begin this deconstruction. And the first ruin we must clear is the 3 great myths of attractiveness that have built so much female anxiety. Myth 1, the myth of unavailability. We are told, be cold, don't reply immediately, make him pursue you. And this seems logical, as it creates the illusion of value through scarcity. But the truth is, this strategy is a trap. It attracts not a mature partner looking for an equal, but an immature hunter for whom you are just another trophy, one that will gather dust on the wall of his ego as soon as the hunt is over. Interest built on the chase dies at the finish line. You receive not love, but merely temporary confirmation of your price in the eyes of the conqueror. Myth 2, the myth of eternal positivity. We are whispered, always be light, smile. Don't burden him with your problems. The logic here is simple. No one likes negativity, everyone is drawn to light. But the truth is that by forbidding yourself negative emotions, anger, sadness, doubt, you are committing an act of self-betrayal. You cut off half your soul to become convenient. You turn from a living, breathing, multifaceted woman into a cardboard cutout with a painted smile. And a deep relationship cannot be built with a cardboard cutout. It can be possessed, but it cannot be known. And the third myth, the most insidious, the myth of the chameleon. The advice goes, become his ideal, adapt to his interests. He loves soccer? Now you love it too. He listens to rock? Here is your new playlist. It seems to create intimacy and common ground, but in reality, it erases you. In an attempt to become his mirror, you lose your own face. A man on a deep level is not looking for his reflection. He is looking for the other, a separate universe to explore. When he sees only an echo of his own interest in you, he quickly loses curiosity, because it's impossible to fall in love with an echo. All these misconceptions share one fatal flaw. They try to treat a deep wound with a bandage. They address the symptom while completely ignoring the cause. They try to decorate the facade of a building whose foundation has cracked. Allow me to explain this most crucial metaphor. Imagine your personality as a magnificent building. On the surface is your facade. This is your persona, according to Jung. Your appearance, clothes, manners, your social media page, the rehearsed stories you tell about yourself. This is the part of you that you show the world. Deeper down are the load-bearing walls. These are your values, your principles, your boundaries. These are the lessons you have learned from your experience, your resilience. This is what holds you up when the winds of life blow. And at the very base, hidden from view, lies the foundation. This is your true self, your individuality. This is your deep, unbreakable connection to yourself, to your soul. This is who you are when no one is watching. This is the source of your inner strength and authenticity. Now, all these myths, be unavailable, be positive, be a chameleon, are desperate attempts at endless cosmetic repairs to the facade. It's an attempt to touch up peeling paint, hang a pretty garland on the window, change the color of the shutters. Modern culture is obsessed with the art of decorating facades, but it is criminally silent about the art of laying the foundation. But here is the relentless truth of soul architecture. If the foundation has cracked, if you have lost connection with yourself, no matter how skillful the decor, it will not save the building from collapse. Cracks will still show through the fresh paint, and most importantly, the building will feel unsafe. And a mature, psychologically stable person intuitively senses this. Their subconscious, like a sensitive seismograph, registers not the brightness of the paint on the facade, but the monolithic strength of the foundation. They are not drawn to the decoration. They are drawn to the feeling of home, to a place where it is safe, to wholeness. This building metaphor is not just a pretty theory. It is a diagnostic tool, a mirror that I am now holding out to you, so you can see not only the reflection but also the internal structure. And I ask you to do something important. Something that requires silence and absolute honesty with yourself. Ask yourself one question. In which area of my life do I spend the most energy on the facade, desperately ignoring the foundation? Perhaps it's your career, where you create a flawless image of a tireless professional, while inside you are burning out and the load-bearing walls of your values are cracking under the pressure? Or is it friendship, where you play the role of the fun, easygoing friend, always ready to listen, but never risking to show your own pain and vulnerability as if it were a crack that would bring the whole building down? Or maybe it's romantic relationships, where you are so afraid of being rejected that you become your partner's ideal, but lifeless reflection, carefully painting over every inconvenient trait of your own? Think about this. Where are you most afraid to show your cracks, your imperfections, your doubts, your fatigue? Where do you hide them with the greatest diligence, intuitively sensing that it is precisely in these vulnerable places that your authentic, unbreakable power is hidden? And now I ask you to do something that few people do in this fast-paced world. Pause this video for a minute, for 5, as long as it takes. Don't rush. Don't look for the right answer. Just allow it to come. Because the answer to this question is not just information. It is not a reason for self-flagellation. It is a key. It is the first mark on the map of your inner world, pointing to the exact place where your main treasure is buried. It is the beginning of your journey home, to yourself, to your foundation. If you were honest with yourself in that moment of silence, you probably felt something more than just a thought. You felt a slight pang of discomfort, recognition, or perhaps even yearning. This is the voice of your foundation. It is the call of your authentic essence, tired of being buried under layers of other people's expectations and social masks. It is this work with the foundation, this return home to oneself, that the great architect of the soul, Carl Gustav Jung, spoke about all his life. He was not just a psychologist. He was a cartographer of the inner world who descended into the deepest shafts of the human psyche and brought back the blueprints of its true structure. He called this central process of life individuation, the great and sometimes difficult journey of becoming who you truly are. It is not a process of adding something new, but a process of courageously cutting away everything superfluous, everything extraneous. It is the archaeological work of clearing your authentic self from the debris of parental mandates, cultural stereotypes, and your own fears. It is the path to ceasing to be a copy and becoming an original. And the woman who embarks on this path makes the greatest paradigm shift. She ceases to need to adorn the facade, for her very inner structure, her wholeness, becomes her main undeniable beauty. She no longer tries to be attractive. She simply is. And this being radiates such strength and authenticity that it becomes hypnotically appealing. Therefore, the 7 secrets we will discuss next are not 7 decorative elements for your facade, not 7 tricks to attract attention. They are the 7 load-bearing columns of her inner temple, the 7 pillars on which her sovereign, whole, and irresistible being rests. And we will begin to erect them right now. So let's erect the first and most important of the 7 columns of this inner temple. It is the foundation for all the others. Column number 1, sovereignty. She is the center of her gravity. What does this mean? Sovereignty is the practical, lived, cellular-level manifestation of individuation. It is a state in which a woman ceases to be a psychological colony of other people's opinions, desires, and moods. She no longer seeks outside what she has learned to give herself: approval, a sense of self-worth, a direction for her path, even entertainment. Her solitude is not a vacuum to be urgently filled by someone, but a fruitful solitude filled with her own rich presence. She ceases to be a supplicant and becomes a source. Metaphorically, she is no longer a planet desperately seeking a star to revolve around for light and warmth. She herself becomes the star. She ignites her inner sun, and her own gravitational field softly but relentlessly orders the planets, moons, and entire worlds around her. They are attracted not because she calls them, but because it is the law of her nature. What does this look like in life? She is a woman who can go to a restaurant, a movie, or travel alone and derive deep, sincere pleasure from it. She doesn't wait for someone to give her experiences. She creates them for herself. Her no sounds just as calm, firm, and guilt-free as her yes, because both these words come from the same place, from her sovereign center, not from the fear of disappointing or the desire to please. She is the mistress of her own territory. But sovereignty alone is not enough to be a star. Fuel is needed, and this fuel is hidden where most fear to look. This is the second column, Dance with the Shadow. She is not afraid of her demons. The shadow, according to Jung, is not evil. It is the reservoir of everything we were forbidden to feel and express to be good girls. Our anger, our healthy aggression, our inconvenient ambitions, our primal sexuality. A mature woman does not try to destroy this part of herself. She understands that this would mean destroying the source of her vital force. Instead, she descends into her basements, turns on the light, and gets acquainted with those who live there. She integrates her shadow. She doesn't destroy her anger, but transforms it into unbreakable boundaries. She doesn't suppress her ambitions, but directs them toward creating her reality. She is like the moon. She has both a visible, light side and an invisible dark side. And she intuitively knows that it is the dark side that gives her volume, gravity, and mystery. A woman without a shadow is not an angel. She is a flat, paper-cutout silhouette that is easily blown away by the first gust of wind. What does this look like in life? She does not seek conflict, but she does not run from it either, capable of standing firmly on her ground. Her anger is a clean, controlled fire that warms her principles, not a chaotic blaze that burns everything around. Her sexuality is not a flashy outfit, but a quiet, low hum of vital force that is felt in her presence. She stops striving to be nice. She allows herself to be real. She has befriended the wolf living inside her, and therefore she does not need to wear a sheepskin to appear harmless. The integrated shadow gives her access to a primal, unbreakable strength. But strength without direction can turn into chaos. And to prevent this, the third supporting column is erected in her inner temple. Column number 3, Inner Compass. She is her own logos. This is her developed animus, her internal masculine principle. If her feminine essence, her eros, is the capacity for deep connection and feeling, then her animus is the logos, the principle of meaning and structure. It is her capacity for clear thinking, strategic planning, and, most importantly, for setting unbreakable boundaries. She does not look for a man to be her spine because she has already grown her own. She does not wait for someone to come and build her life because she has her own inner architect who consults her own blueprints. Imagine it this way. Her soul is not only a raging, alive ocean of eros with all its depth and unpredictability. At the center of this ocean, on an unbreakable rock, stands a sturdy lighthouse, her logos. The lighthouse does not try to tame the ocean or drain it. That would be violence against her nature. No, it simply shines. It gives her enormous strength, a clear reference point, helps her navigate around reefs, and does not allow the waves to destroy her own shore. What does this look like in life? She confidently manages her finances because her security is her responsibility. She can calmly, without drama or accusations, look her partner in the eye and say, "This is unacceptable to me." Her decisions are based not only on an intuitive, "I feel," but also on a weight, "I think," in a firm, "I know." And most importantly, she stops looking for a savior. She looks for an equal. When your inner compass, animus, points the way, you stop getting off course because of every random wave. You acquire a quality that acts almost hypnotically in our chaotic, anxious world. This is the fourth column. Depth, not drama. She is an ocean, not a storm. This is the activation of the wise old woman archetype within her. the ability to see the essence of things without getting caught up in the superficial froth of events. Drama is the constant creation of ripples on the surface to draw attention to one's own agitation. Depth is the realization that true life happens in quiet, powerful underwater currents. Drama shouts, "Look at me!" Depth is silent. Look within. The immature woman is a shallow puddle. Any stone thrown into it, someone else's word, a sideways glance causes turbulent circles and splashes. She demands that everyone notice her agitation. The mature woman is a deep mountain lake. The same stone, thrown into its waters, silently sinks deep, without disturbing the majestic calm of the surface. Her silence weighs more than 1,000 other people's cries. Her presence soothes rather than excites anxiety. Her calmness is not indifference, but proof that she has seen stronger storms and knows that they all pass. Where does this depth come from? It does not arise out of thin air. It is cultivated in silence. It is nourished in the space that the modern world fears most. This is the fifth column, the language of silence. Her inner world is vast. This is her deep, intimate connection with her unconscious. The mature woman is not afraid of silence, because in silence, she is not alone. She meets herself, with her ideas, images, dreams, and symbols. Her solitude is not a vacuum to be filled with someone else's presence or external noise. It is fertile ground where her uniqueness grows, where her soul speaks to her in its true language. Her personality is like a huge house with many rooms. What she shows the world is just a bright, welcoming hall. But beyond its doors, there is a quiet library full of wisdom, a creative workshop where new ideas are born, and a secret garden to which only she has access. She is not in a hurry to give a tour to everyone she meets, not because she is hiding something, but because these spaces are sacred. It is the awareness that these invisible rooms exist that creates the hypnotic sense of mystery and bottomless depth. What does this look like in life? She can spend the whole evening with a book and consider it the best evening of the week. She is not afraid of pauses in conversation because she knows that silence often speaks more than words. She does not need a constant stream of external stimulation, social media feeds, endless TV series, because her internal series is much more interesting. She is appealing not because she is hiding something, but because there is something to discover in her. And when a woman spends a lot of time in the silence of her inner house, she inevitably learns to hear its true inhabitants, her feelings. Thus, the sixth living and vibrating column is erected in her temple. Column number 6, emotional honesty. Her feelings are information, not a weapon. This is her developed feeling function. She stops dividing emotions into good and bad, right and wrong. She treats them as valuable signals from her soul, as data about her inner state. Anger, sadness, joy, fear. All of them are not enemies to her, but messengers. She does not suppress them, allowing them to turn into the poison of passive aggression. She does not project them onto others, using them as a weapon in drama. She does something third, the most difficult and the wisest. She lives them through. Her emotions are like the weather in her inner world. She does not try to cancel the rain of sadness or forbid the thunderstorm of anger. She simply takes the umbrella of awareness or waits out the storm in her reliable house, knowing that all weather passes and is necessary for the overall balance of her soul's ecosystem. She is a wise observer of her inner weather, not its helpless victim. In her presence, one can be real. And now when all 6 columns, sovereignty, shadow, compass, depth, silence, and honesty are erected, the inner temple is ready. It becomes something more than just a reliable structure. It acquires an almost magical quality. This is the 7th, final, and most mysterious column. Column number 7, mirror for the soul. She reflects his own potential to him. Inside every man's psyche, as Jung taught, lives the anima, his unconscious inner image of woman, his muse, his guide to the world of the soul. Often this image is forgotten or unrecognized. But when such a man meets a woman in whom all 6 columns have been erected, an alchemical reaction occurs. He unconsciously projects this, his ideal, shining image onto her. He falls in love not so much with her as with his own soul, which he suddenly saw in her. She becomes a clean, untainted mirror for him. Before meeting her, all other mirrors were crooked, muddy, stained by other people's expectations. And now, for the first time in his life, he sees in a woman not just an object of desire, but a clear reflection of his own forgotten depth. He loses his mind not over her, but over the deafening encounter with himself that became possible because of her. But here is her highest power. Thanks to her wholeness, she sees this projection. She does not tell herself, "I am his goddess." This is a trap for the ego. She simply endures this adoration. She remains herself sovereign, grounded, and thereby holds the mirror steady, giving him the precious opportunity to get acquainted with his own soul, without breaking either herself or him in the process. To truly feel how this works, let me tell you a story. It is the story of David and Anna. David's world was a world of shiny surfaces. A successful investor, he lived in a penthouse with panoramic windows, and his life was a series of deals, victories, and trophy women who reflected his status. But in his 40s, he felt a profound weariness. All the scripts were learned, all the games were played. Inside, there was emptiness. He met Anna at a gallery opening. She was not the brightest or loudest woman in the room. She was simply standing by a painting, truly looking at it. David approached, turning on his own charm. He spoke of his travels, of a recent deal. Anna listened, but her eyes were calm and clear. She wasn't trying to please him. When he asked what she thought of the painting, she replied, "It makes me feel very lonely and very free at the same time." It was the first time in years that a woman had answered him, not with what he expected to hear, but with what she actually felt. His standard tactics shattered against her presence. When he impulsively offered to fly her to Paris for the weekend, she gently declined. "Thank you. That's very generous. But I have a pottery class on Saturday that I've been looking forward to all week." It was not a whim or a game of unavailability. It was a fact of her life, her sovereign territory. One evening at dinner, routinely testing her strength, he voiced a cynical opinion about human nature. She did not argue or agree. She looked at him and quietly asked, "David, do you really believe that? Or are you just hurting?" His world momentarily shook. No one had ever looked past his facade. Sitting alone in his impeccable penthouse one evening, surrounded by the symbols of his success, he realized something stunning. He wasn't just attracted to Anna. In her presence, the deafening silence of his soul gave way to a quiet melody. It was not a desire to possess. It was a feeling of recognition, as if he, the eternal wanderer, had finally returned home. He realized that all his achievements had been an attempt to build walls, and she was an open door to the space he had been searching for so long to himself. At their next meeting, overwhelmed with emotion, he said, "I don't know what you do to me. Next to you, I remember something important." Anna did not flinch under the weight of his adoration. She did not put on the crown of the goddess he was trying to place on her. She simply smiled, touched his hand, and said, "Perhaps you are just remembering yourself, David." She remained the mirror. And he who came to her to conquer, for the first time in years, began to find himself. The story of Anna and David ends here. But your story, your real story, is just beginning. And this tale is not just an illustration, it is the key. Understand, this story is not about the fictional David and Anna. Anna is that huge, shining potential that lives inside you. This is the version of you that stopped apologizing for her depth and started living it. And David is not just a man, he is the symbolic reflection of the world. A world that is desperately starving for authenticity. A world that is tired of flawless facades and intuitively gravitates toward a solid foundation. Your depth, which you thought was repelling, is actually the very source of living water that this parched world thirsts for. It is simply waiting for you to build a worthy channel for it. And these 7 columns we have discussed are not just a theory. This is your personal architectural plan. These are 7 areas for your growth, 7 directions for your inner work. By looking at them honestly, you can pinpoint exactly where your inner building is most vulnerable and where an unbreakable power is already laid. Therefore, now I want to ask you the second and perhaps the most important question of this hour. I ask you to look inside again, into the silence of your being. Which of these 7 columns in your inner temple currently needs the most attention? Which one seems the most fragile, the most neglected, or requires immediate, loving restoration? Let's recall them. 1. Sovereignty, your ownership of yourself. 2. Dance with the shadow, your friendship with your power and darker sides. 3. Inner compass, your internal structure and boundaries. 4. Depth, not drama, your emotional wisdom. 5. The language of silence, your connection to your rich inner world. 6. Emotional honesty, your ability to live through feelings without breaking down. 7. Mirror for the soul, your ability to be rather than to seem. And now I ask you to do something simple, yet incredibly powerful. Write the number or name of that column in the comments below. Not for me, not for others, for yourself. This will be your first step towards strengthening it. This will be your declaration of intent to the universe. This act is more than just a comment. It is an acknowledgement. It is a declaration. It is the first strike of the hammer in the sacred work of restoring your inner temple. Let this digital space bear witness to your analog real decision. And the fact that you are able to identify your weakest column is already the beginning of a great transformation. Because you have just discovered your lead, let me explain. Every time you felt not enough, too complex, inconvenient, every time you encountered the pain of rejection or the sorrow of loneliness, thinking there was something wrong with you, it was not a curse. It was your inner alchemist who, with a quiet, persistent whisper, pointed you to your lead. In the ancient science of alchemy, lead, or prima materia, is not just a metal. It is a symbol of the raw, chaotic, unconscious state. It is the heaviness of our fears, the grayness of our insecurity, the coldness of our old wounds. It is the part of us we consider ugly, useless, and want to get rid of. And gold is a symbol of wholeness, awareness, the radiance of the awakened soul. And the great work of the alchemists, their magnum opus, was not in seeking gold outside, but in transforming their inner lead into gold. This is the most accurate metaphor for the process of individuation. And here is the main secret. The soul sends us pain not so that we suffer, but so that we finally pay attention to it. Your feeling of loneliness is not a defect. It is a compass pointing to the need to strengthen the column of sovereignty. Your weariness from emotional swings is a call to depth, not drama. Your fear of your own power is an invitation to the dance with the shadow. Your pain is not a punishment. It is a sacred compass that unerringly points to the place in your soul where your main treasure is buried. Every one of your so-called flaws, every one of your problems is just a disguised teacher who has come to bring you home to your wholeness. Your task is not to run from it, but to sit down and begin the lesson. The alchemist does not work in a noisy marketplace, but in the secluded silence of his laboratory. Similarly, the work of transforming psychological lead into gold is a deeply internal, intimate work. Therefore, the first and most important step you can take right now is to change the vector of your attention. Stop looking outwards. Look inwards. This means stop asking the wrong questions. Questions that lead to the dead end of anxiety and dependence. Questions like, what should I do to be liked? How can I attract him? What mask should I wear today? These questions stem from a paradigm of deficit. They imply that something is already wrong with you, and you need to add or change something to earn love. Start asking the right fruitful questions. Questions that lead to strength and wholeness. Instead of how do I become attractive, ask, what part of myself have I ignored for so long that it has started hurting so I would notice it? Instead of, what do men want, ask, what voice within myself am I refusing to hear? Ask yourself, what is my shadow really afraid of? What is my inner wise old woman silent about? Where are the true boundaries of my sovereign state? What does my inner king, my animus, dream of? This is the real work. It does not happen on dating sites or at social gatherings. It happens in silence, alone with yourself, with your diary, with your dreams. It does not require a new dress. It requires a new level of honesty. It does not require the ability to flirt. It requires the courage to face your fears and your treasures. This is not an easy path. It is much simpler to continue painting the facade. But this is the only path that leads to the creation of something authentic and unbreakable. Stop trying to win an external game whose rules you did not write. Start winning the internal one, where you are the player, the playing field, and the main prize itself. And so that this dialogue with yourself does not remain just a beautiful idea, I want to give you one practical tool. It is simple, but its depth may surprise you. This is a technique based on Jungian active imagination, which we will call the dialogue with the forgotten part. I ask you to do this not in your mind, but physically. Take a pen and paper, not a laptop, not a phone. Precisely a pen and paper, because the physical movement of writing slows down our rational mind and connects us with deeper, intuitive layers of the psyche. Step 1. Create a space of silence for yourself for at least 15 minutes, where no one will disturb you. Step 2. Recall the column you identified as the weakest, the one you might have written in the comments. Dance with the shadow, inner compass, sovereignty. This is your dialogue partner. Step 3. Address this part of yourself as a living, real being. Write it a letter. Start like this: my dear shadow, or my forgotten sovereignty, and then ask it the most honest questions that come to your mind. For example, why are you hiding? What do you want to tell me that I stubbornly don't hear? What are you afraid of? What power are you holding for me? Step 4, and this is the most important, almost magical step. After finishing your letter, switch the pen to your other non-dominant hand, or simply take a pen of a different color and start writing the answer from its name. Do not think, do not analyze, do not edit, do not try to make it beautiful or correct. Just let the hand move. Let the answer be clumsy, childish, angry, illogical. Allow this part to speak the way it wants to. What happens at this moment? You bypass your inner censor, your ego, which always knows how things should be. The unfamiliar movement of the other hand or the different color breaks habitual neural pathways, giving voice to what is usually suppressed your unconscious. You will be amazed by the wisdom, the pain, and the unbreakable power that lives in your most rejected and forgotten parts. This is not my wisdom. It is yours. It is simply waiting for you to finally ask it a question and listen to the answer with respect. This exercise is just one door among many leading to your inner temple. But the most important work is not the technique. It is a fundamental change in your intention, your main life question. Understand, your true task is not to become attractive. Your task is to become so whole, so genuinely and unshakably yourself, that the very question of attractiveness simply ceases to exist. It becomes irrelevant. It dissolves in the radiance of your presence, like the question of whether a candle is burning when you look at the sun. Attractiveness is the shadow cast by wholeness. For years, you have tried to draw a beautiful shadow on the wall without having the object to cast it. You chase the effect, ignoring the cause. Your job is not to chase the shadow. Your job is to become that monolithic, beautiful in its authenticity sculpture that casts this shadow without any effort, simply by the fact of its existence. And then your mission changes. It becomes greater than just personal happiness or successful relationships. Your task is to become a woman in whose presence other people, not just men, but women, friends, colleagues, also suddenly remember their own forgotten soul. Your wholeness becomes permission for others to be themselves. Your calmness extinguishes their anxiety. Your depth calls them to their own depth. You become not an object of desire, but a catalyst for awakening. This is your true, unbreakable power. And the most important thing you must hear today is, it is not out there in the future after 10 years of therapy or reading 100 books. It is already in you, right now. All of it. It is in your lead, which is waiting for transformation. It is in the voice of your shadow, which yearns to be heard. It is in the silence of your heart. It never left. It is simply waiting. Waiting for you to finally stop seeking approval in the eyes of others and turn your own loving and attentive gaze upon it. We have traveled a long way in this hour, from the mirror of your pain to the architectural blueprints of your inner temple. And if we distill this entire journey down to a single pearl of wisdom, It will shine with a blinding, unbreakable simplicity. So the 7 secrets of a mature woman who attracts are not 7 techniques to catch a man. They are 7 acts of liberating yourself from the captivity of other people's expectations. They are not 7 keys to his heart. They are 7 keys with which you open 7 gates to your own sovereign kingdom. This is the great shift from the desperate desire to be chosen to the calm and unshakable realization that choosing is your inherent sacred right. This is a tectonic shift from the state of an object that is being evaluated to the state of a center of the universe that sets its own gravity. You cease to be a candidate undergoing an endless interview for the role of someone's woman. You become the one conducting that interview, and whose main question is, are you worthy to enter my world? And finally, the main insight I ask you to take with you. True hypnotic appeal is not what you do. It is not a set of gestures, words, or learned strategies. It is who you become when you completely stop trying to be someone for others. It is the radiance that emanates from you when you no longer try to shine with reflected light, but ignite your own sun. It is the music that the world begins to hear when you stop playing by someone else's notes and finally allow your own unique and inimitable melody of the soul to sound. And when you accept this truth with all your heart, it is not just your thinking that changes. The very fabric of your reality changes. Allow yourself for a moment to see this future. Imagine your life where your solitude is no longer a yearning to be suppressed, but a fruitful, desired seclusion, a time when you hear yourself. Imagine where your no, spoken calmly and without excuses, does not cause you guilt, but inspires quiet, unwavering respect in the eyes of others. Imagine where your emotions are not a chaotic storm that threatens to drown you, but wise advisors, the language of your soul, to which you have learned to listen with trust. And imagine relationships that are not a desperate search for salvation from yourself, but a free, joyful dance of 2 self-sufficient universes that meet to enrich, not to fill the void of one another. Imagine a date you go on not with the anxious question, will he like me? But with quiet, confident curiosity, will he be interesting for my world? This is not fantasy. This is not a fairy tale for adults. This is the reality that is built brick by brick with every courageous step you take inward, with every honest dialogue with your shadow, with every no said to the world, to say yes to yourself. And this construction begins today. And this path to the future, the path inward, may at first seem lonely. But before we conclude, I want to thank you. Thank you for walking this path with me to the very end, spending a whole hour exploring the depths of your soul in a world that demands only a second of superficial attention from you. This is not just watching a video. It is an act of courage. It is an act of quiet, personal revolution. And by performing it, you have changed. You are no longer just a viewer, passively consuming information. You are an explorer, a seeker who dared to unfold their own map. And know that you are not alone on this journey. I ask you, look at the comments under this video. You will see there not just words. You will see hundreds, perhaps thousands of explorers just like you, each with their unique landscape, each with their fragile column that they have decided to strengthen, each with their own map, but we are all walking toward the same center. We are a community of those walking inward, and this is an enormous strength. Thank you for being here. And if you want our joint explorations to continue, if you feel that this conversation should be continued, then do the following. If this journey was valuable to you, subscribe so you don't miss our next expeditions into the innermost corners of the soul. Click the bell. It will become your personal signal, your call, when we are ready to set off again to new maps and new discoveries. Every like you give is not just a number for a soulless algorithm. It is a lighthouse. It is a light that you ignite in the digital darkness to help other seeking souls, just like you, find this quiet harbor in the ocean of superficial noise. But the most important thing I ask you to do is, don't just watch. Do. Take at least one thought, one feeling from this hour, and weave it into the fabric of your life tomorrow. Start a dialogue with your shadow. Say one honest no. Spend half an hour in silence. Live the truth you discovered today, and always remember, don't try to fit the world. Make the world fit your awakened soul